Welcome to another episode of Six Figure Secrets for Fractional Experts. My name is Bradley Jacobs. I'm our host and the founder of Mylance. Today, I'm joined by Ted Rubin. Ted, thank you so much for joining.
Brad, thanks for having me here. I'm excited to get started. We spoke a little while ago, and I've been looking forward to this.
Awesome. So Ted is an author, a speaker. He's been a CMO for 11 years and many years of professional experience before that. Ted, you have a lot of views on engaging with people, right? It seems like you've written numerous books on how important that is and how people can do it the right way and do it the wrong way. Give our audience the minute or two overview on that belief, and then we'll dive in.
Well, I was just taught from a young age that relationships were everything. And this is before you were able to create the scale of relationships that you can now in a short period of time and over a long period of time. And what I found is that a lot of people, especially young people, tend to neglect that. There's actually two groups that I feel neglected. It's young people because you think life is going to be perfect and that everything's going to go great and all your friends are going to be your friends forever. And you can't imagine needing more friends when you have all these great friends in elementary school and high school. And then I feel that sometimes when people become very important, and I mean that in a respectful way, they get a high-level job, they become a senior executive, their career is on the right path, their family, things are going great. And again, they think like, I don't need people. I'm the guy, or I'm too busy to do those kinds of things. And I think that's a critical error, because I think at some point in your life, usually many points, we all need people. We all need somebody. We all need help. We all need advice. We all need a shoulder to cry on. We all need, a mentor, even if it's someone that we once considered not even our equal. So for me, it's just always been about that. And when my whole life, wherever I've worked, wherever I've played, whatever I've been a participant in, I've always left there with some meaningful relationships that I've done everything I can to keep for the rest of my life. And I think that a lot of people overlook this. And what it had me thinking about, especially once I got into being a CMO, and I'm sure if you have CMOs in the audience or just especially small business owners, is that you think everything has to have ROI attached to it in your business. And look, it does in a way. Yes. If you're putting in money, you have to make sure that it's working for you. I think ROI is a part of life. You want to be friends with the people that your return on investment over the long run is valuable. But I started talking about something called return on relationship, because especially when I became a CMO in 2008 and going forward with all these digital assets we have available to us, everything is a commodity. Who out there is actually selling something that nobody else has? And truth be told, even if you've developed something that for a short period of time maybe is unique, you're still selling against other things and other vendors that company owners can invest in to help improve their business. So in the end, the real value comes from those relationships you develop. And just to give you a few things that I like to say, relationships are like muscle tissue. The more you engage them, the stronger and more valuable they become. Your brand is what a business or a person does, but your reputation is what people remember and share. And your reputation is what stays with you through the ups and downs and through every business or every recreation that we do. Again, young people think you're going to be on a straight trajectory. You're going to make your plan. You're going to follow it. You're going to take it from the start to the finish. And as most of us know, and probably a lot of the business owners that listen to your podcast, nothing happens the way we expect it to. And there is no straight path. I'm 66. I've reinvented myself more times than I like to imagine. And to the point of your podcast, which is that, freelancing, is that everybody's a freelancer. I don't care what you're doing. Because it's a different world now. We all can be involved in multiple things. Back in the day, before all these digital tools were available to us, it was hard to do more than one thing at once, or people didn't notice you, or there was not this digital and user economy and influencer economy and maker economy, where even I know a bunch of incredibly high-level CEOs and CMOs who sell things on eBay on the side, who have Etsy shops, who go to craft fairs on the weekends and have a whole nother passion and love and actually becomes a business for them. And a lot of them are asked to sit on boards or they're asked to do consulting. My consulting career began like a lot of us when I was in between roles, but the way my consulting career continued throughout those roles is that people would ask me to, can you still consult for me? I know you have a full-time job, but I'd love you to be on my advisory board, or maybe you can help make some recommendations. So that's really what all of this is all about. My initial book was called Return on Relationship, which is about how ROR wraps itself around everything and increases the value of even your very basic ROI. I follow that up with a book called How to Look People in the Eye Digitally. And what I like to refer to that as Dale Carnegie for the digital era. One of my favorite books and one I've carried with me always is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And it was written in 1936. And I will tell you, I'm on stage very often and I'll say, what is the best social media book ever written? And everybody thinks it's either something I wrote or Gary Vaynerchuk or people much bigger and more important than me. And I smile, I go, I'll give you a clue. It was written in 1936. And it was written when you probably wouldn't meet more than 100 people in your lifetime. But the things he talks about in there, about finding out what's important to the people that you're either trying to sell or you're working with, calling people by their names, because there's no word in any language that's more beautiful to each of our own ears than the sound of our own name, to the point where, and you might have seen this in some of our communications, I almost always reply using the person's name. I mean, not if I get in a back and forth text communication, I'm not going to write your name every time. But if you initially reach out to me or I initially reach out to you, I'm going to use your name. And these skills, I think, are more important today than they ever were, because not only can you make more relationships, but you can ruin more relationships very quickly. And we know how those kinds of things spread. So I hope that answers your question.
So much there. It's like every sentence I want to ask a follow-on question. I'll start with, you talked about the volume that we interact with as far as number of people on a daily, weekly, monthly basis is exponentially larger than it was, as you said, back in the day, right? A few decades ago. And so the question I have is, how do we balance building relationships with people, which is the core of kind of what you talk about, how important those relationships are, and finding the time, like how do we find the time to invest in relationships and focus on our business and get the things that we need to done when we're interacting with so many more people than we used to?
So that's such an important question that so few people recognize and focus on, that there's so much going on. I mean, we're all overtaxed, right? I mean, there was a point where I thought I was losing my mind, or I thought I was going senile, or, my brain wasn't functioning as well because I couldn't remember things, except I found out that the 24-year-old interns working in my office were forgetting more than I was, because we have so much incoming. So I think a big thing that has become a part of the conversation recently, even more than before, is that we need to know how to moderate that. We need to know how to set time aside for focusing. We need to understand that multitasking should not be something that you go, oh, I'm a multitasker, I can do 5 things at once. You have to recognize that multitasking is valuable at some times, but it also lessens the quality of each of the things you're working on. Because if you can't focus, our brains just aren't at that point yet. So, here's something that's a classic thing that people will bring up when they say that you shouldn't be, when they give you the negative side of being in touch with too many people. They say you can't, there's this scientific research that says you can't have more than 150 real connections. Now, if I'm quoting it wrong, it might have changed over time. It was the reason when Google made Google Circles, and you might recall there was this period of time where Google tried to get into the social space to compete with Facebook. And they made this thing that you could only connect with 150 people, because the concept was you couldn't manage it. But what I've come to understand is that 150 is always shifting for some of us, not for everybody. Some people, they're set on that. It's good. It might work for their careers. It might work for their personal life. But for most of us who are out there and are involved in businesses and being on companies' boards and multitasking in 5 different directions, you can have thousands of connections. You just can't focus on them all at the same time. So part of what I've done is I'm very active socially. And one of the reasons is it allows me to share with more people. Like, we all know the detriments of social media and the negative things that come with it. For me, what the positive side is that I can share a lot of what I'm doing with a lot more people, because I certainly can't call all those people or text all those people or have phone, or even have time to engage with each one of them. Unless you're, again, one of the superstars of the digital world, you can probably like if they leave a comment on your post or write a quick something to them. And then you learn to focus at different times on different people. My business partner and my ex-business partner, John Andrews, always makes calls when he's in his car. Now, he happens to live and work in Raleigh, and he used to, before COVID, he drove to work every day. So it was a good time for him. I take road trips, and I save a lot of that time for those calls that you just don't have time for. And I literally will start going through my phone or going through my database and saying, okay, I do a road trip north starting July 8th. And every few days after I visit people, I'm on the road again for 5 to 9 hours. Not only do I look for people to call, but I put it online. Hey guys, to everybody. I put it on LinkedIn. I put it on Facebook. I am going to be on the road for 9 hours tomorrow. Feel free to call. And let me tell you what you accomplish with that. Yes, there can be that 1 or 2 times, and I've had them, where way too many people call. But in essence, most won't. But most what I call they participate vicariously through that offer. They see the offer. They recognize that they could take you up on it. And in some ways, in their head, that's enough. Ted just told me I could call. And maybe if you know them, and you probably do at some point or another, they know that at some point they did take you up on that. They called and you actually answered your phone. Now, there's another thing. If someone calls me, I clearly, there's a good job being done now with telling us about the spam calls and things like that. But if somebody calls me, especially if I see the name and I know it, I pick up the phone. Unless I'm like right now, if my phone rang, clearly I wouldn't answer it. But if you and I were just chatting and my phone rang, I might answer it real quick and just say, hey man, I'm busy with something else. Let me get back to you. Or I'll do the text back to let them know. My voicemail is not full. To me, when you have that thing that says my voicemail is full, for most people, what you're saying is, screw you, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want you to leave me a message, because then I have to listen to it. And then I also listen to my voicemails. I mean, how many people call you back and they don't have a clue? You just left them a detailed voicemail. You didn't take up too much of their time. It was 30 seconds long. You let them know what you needed. They could have called you back with the answer, but instead they just either text you or call you. And now, to me, that's just telling people where they stand with you, where people in general stand with you. But there's also another side to it. I'm also very clear with people on the best way to communicate with me. And I think everybody needs to do that. Let me know. And then if somebody doesn't follow that, then they're kind of breaking the rules. So I learned this as a divorced dad. So I got divorced when my daughters were only 5 and 7, and speaking to them was really important to me. And then they got a little bit older, and they got their phones, and texting came around. And are you a parent, Bradley? I couldn't find you on Facebook, so I couldn't find out if you had kids or something like that. And it didn't show anything like that on your website or LinkedIn. So if you did, or you were a kid once, so you know that when you're like, what I love to say to an audience, how many of you try to call your kids on the phone? And you get back 2 seconds later a text that says, what? With an exclamation point. That's your kid's way of telling you, I do not want to talk to you on the phone. Text me. I mean, there was a point back, my kids are older now, they're 27 and 29, but there was a point in the early days of Snapchat where all you could do was make faces. And I would do that to get my daughter's attention on Snapchat, because it got to the point at some point where she wouldn't answer my text. But it gave me a real awakening to how important it is on the one side to let people know how best to communicate with you, and on the other side to acknowledge somebody that tells you how to communicate with them. So I get a lot of outreach via LinkedIn. And if it's proper and it's someone I think is legit, I'll reach back to them. But then I'll immediately say, way better to communicate with me via email, please, because that way I can follow it. It's a great way for me to track it. And some of those people, as you know, because most of them don't even read your reply, and they're just trying to sell you something, they just keep replying on LinkedIn. And for me, that's like, bye. I'm done. I told you how to do it. I made it easy for you. So what I would say to your audience is, number one, be open to the cues of people telling you how best to communicate with them. Too many businesses, and I find this a lot with small businesses. Somebody sells them an email program or a chat program or some kind of AI text program, who knows? And that's the way they communicate. And even when their customers are right up front by saying, please call me or please text me, or, I mentioned to you that I have some people working on this building. So I bought up this whole building during COVID that I live in, and I've been renovating it. And I always tell these guys, text me before you get here. Don't wait until you're here, because I'm going to keep you waiting. And some of them listen, some of them don't. But I just think it's a really important skill to learn, especially going back to our conversation. But how do you manage all these people? How do you manage? You manage them by telling them, how do you communicate with me? Another thing I do is I hate not getting back to people. And we all do it. We all, without meaning to, we overlook things. We think we replied to a text, and then we go back and look and see that we never hit send. Or how many times does that happen with email? I'm very upfront with people. I tell them, if I don't get back to you in 24 at the outside, 48 hours, it means it fell between the cracks. Please remind me. And you won't bother me by reminding me. You'll help me. Even if my answer is just going to be, I don't have enough time for this. Bradley, I'm not going to be able to do this. Please call me back in 6 months. Well, that's another thing I'll do. Sometimes if somebody reaches out to me, and this is another great thing, either on either end of the stick. So if you're a small business owner and someone does this, understand it's a test. Or if you need to do it, I do it as a test. If you reach out to sell me something and it's not something I need today, I'll tell you, listen, I'm really crazy right now. Get back to me in 3 months, and I'll be happy to talk to you. 99% of those people never get back to me. So first of all, I waded through the people that really didn't have something of value or really hadn't done their research, because they never get back to me. And by the way, if they come back to me and say, hey, would you mind if that's in a month? I've kind of got a schedule. Sure, get back to me in a month. Again, I'm very happy to say that, because I also know that most of these people will never get back to me. And it's a great weeding out process, but understand that people are doing it to you too as a business owner. So be prepared to make note of that and follow up on it.
The Dale Carnegie book is one of my favorites as well. And you hit on two of the things that he talked about, using people's names, but also finding out what's important to them. And I think this, right, it is so overlooked in my opinion, but I would love to hear you talk about, and our audience are interested in finding new clients. Right. This is, at the end of the day, the hardest problem for a fractional executive or small agency owner is, how do I keep my pipeline full? How do I reliably find my next client? And they want to pitch, right? They want to make it all about them. I want to hear your point of view on that principle from Dale's book around finding out and how to actually use it. Like, let's talk as tangibly as you can, whether it's email or LinkedIn. How can our audience actually use that principle to find new clients?
Well, these days, there's no excuse not to do your research. I mean, back when I first got out of school in 1980 and I went to work in my first sales job, I had to go to the library and use something called microfiche to maybe find something out about a company. I used to get these things called chain store guides, which would have names of executives in them, because there was no uniform resource where you could find the kind of information you can now. But today, it's so incredibly easy that it kills me. I advise a bunch of companies, and I end up going to a lot of meetings with them. Much more when I used to live in New York and I was local. But now whenever I'm around, they'll say, hey, would you mind coming? And I get in there, and the first words out of salesman's mouth to someone they're meeting with, which to me is the most criminal thing a guy can do, is, oh, Bradley, how long have you been here? How long has he been here? Like, the easiest information to find out in 3 seconds is, you did not look at his LinkedIn profile. You don't know that he's been here for 15 years or that he's been here for 3 months. And then think about, what's the best way to engage with that information? So if you know someone's been there for 15 years, the thing I would be saying is, Bradley, like, I'm so happy to be in this meeting with you, because there's so much you can tell me about your company that I'd really like to learn. So I'd love to hear about that. Or if you've been there for a few months, wow, I noticed you just got here. Is there anything we can do to support you? And then back to the idea of selling. Look, the end game is, in businesses, we all want to sell something. We all have something to sell. And the problem with a lot of the tools being pushed out there is they're numbers games. And they think that's okay because they tell you to retarget people. They tell you to call someone because you don't make a sale until the seventh close. So when they say no, just keep pushing through. And there are certain types of sales that might work for. But in general, if you're selling a high-end product, this has got to be a consultative sale. And they're getting calls from everybody. So you need to get to know who your prospect is. You need to get to know who the industry is. You need to connect with them on an emotional level. So I'll tell you a story. I graduated college in 1980. I got a sales job. My initial challenge was to get my first appointment and go on that first appointment. And at the end of the week, my dad called me up and he said, "So how'd it go? Did you get an appointment?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "When is it?" I said, "It's next Thursday." He said, "What time?" I said, 10 o'clock. He says, "When are you going to get there?" I said, "I don't know, 5 to 10, 10 to 10. He goes, "No, get there at 9 o'clock. Now remember, different time." He goes, "Walk around," and you can still do this today. Walk around the neighborhood, see what's there, find out what restaurants are there, what other businesses are around. Just get a feel for the neighborhood. Go in the building, look up on the board, see what other companies are there. Get to the office at least 15 minutes early and see if that person's assistant will let you in the office of the person you're meeting with. And look at what's on the walls, what diplomas are there, what photos are there. Is the person a parent, a grandparent? Where did they go to college? Do they like to fish? Do they like to ski? Find points of emotional connection. And that has served me so well over the years. I have so many stories I could tell about situations where banging your head against a wall until you finally found that nugget of entry that was never about the business, was never about your product. It was about the person personally that you were talking to. And that will make all the difference. And it's a slower process, but in the end, it will reap bigger results. My first sales job was one of these jobs where you have to make, hundreds of calls a day. And I would make about a quarter of the calls that the other people made. And I was told I stayed on the phone too long. But I wrote bigger deals because I got to know the people's businesses. I got to know them personally. I got to know I would gradually in the conversation, without them even realizing it, find out the names of their kids or find out some other things over time. Or if they mention something, to this day, if I am with you and you mention, "Oh, look, I got to get going because tomorrow's my son's birthday. And I got to go buy a gift," I'll kind of say, "Oh, well, that's great. How old is he? What's his name?" I mean, I won't ask it in rapid fashion. And I will sit there like in the old days when you're sitting there trying to remember something and you keep repeating it. And when I can, or if I can, when you're there, I'm going to put it into my database and I'm going to put it into, my phone has almost every person in here. It has when I met them, how I met them, where I met them, and very often the first email we had between them. In yours, right now, in your contacts, in my contacts, it has the first outreach the introduction that was made and the first outreach that you made. And two things happens when you have that. If you're prepared, I see you in the room, you're across the room, I quickly go to my thing. Hopefully I remember your name. If I don't, maybe I can kind of stalk around you, grab your name, look it up. I come over to you and I can make like I totally remember that time when you reached out to me to be on your podcast and we had our call. Or right in front of you, I'm happy to look it up and go, "Oh, wow, Brett, we met through the..." And you're going to look at me, either if you think I just remember, you're going to go, "Oh my God." And either you're going to say something in your own head, you're going to feel really good that I remembered you. Or even if you saw me look it up, you're going to go, "Wait a second, you put that in your phone? You saved that? It was that important to you?" I go, "Of course." These kind of things make personal impressions. And I think I said this earlier, but a brand is what a business does. A reputation is what people remember and share. And in today's day and age, people are going to buy more from you because of your reputation than they are because of your exact product, because the odds are your product's going to be pretty equal to somebody else's.
So you're talking about, basically, to what I'm hearing when you talk about this, is going the extra step. Right? Yeah. The extra step to add it to your phone, to get to know somebody, to research them ahead of time, to put it into a database, to follow up with them. What are you seeing in the market today that's either people are doing this or people are not doing it? And which way is it trending? And what's going on and why, in your opinion?
The trend seems to go like this. It changes all the time. It all depends on the environment, the economics of things that are going on. I think when things get a little tougher, like during COVID, people started really connecting. There was really nothing else to do, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. A lot of people have businesses still to run, but their business slowed down or they changed or they had to actually reach out to people and say, I need help, or can you throw me a little business? And I think it changes over people's lives. I think the awakening a lot of us get is when we lose that job or something happens. And all of a sudden we realize we don't have a personal brand, or we're not connected to that many people, or the people we're connected to don't even know who I am. Or I have to write an email to someone like Ted, like the ones I get all the time, that say, hey, Ted, it's Lori. Hey, I'm really sorry. I know I didn't get back to your last few emails, but I was really, really busy and I had a really important job. But right now I'm transitioning. And I was hoping that we could get on a call and I could pick your brain and maybe dig into your network. Now, very few people are like me where they say, sure. They don't call you out or they don't ignore you because you ignored them. Just because I've just lived by this mantra that my dad taught me years ago, which was do for others without expectation of anything directly in return. Because, and I'm not a religious person, don't get me wrong, but it'll come back to you. And I say the universe will bring it back to you, but it's your reputation that brings it back to you. It's people that know that they see it. And today they see it more than ever. I mean, I have a classic line. Somebody put something on LinkedIn or Facebook about a problem they're having, or they just lost their job, or they need help with something, or they just got a great new job. And my standard answer is, please be sure to let me know how I can support you. And there's two different ways of thinking out there. There's the people that see that and go, oh my God, Ted, thank you so much. You're always there to help. And I know that if I actually reach out, you'll pick up the phone and you'll help any way you can. And then there's the people who automatically, because it's what they do, think I'm trying to sell them something. And either they don't respond or they say, well, listen, we're real good right now. We don't need any consultants. Or we don't. And I'm like, I wasn't offering to consult for you. I was offering to introduce you to Brad Jacobs because he's got a great podcast and, you should be on it. It'll help you. Look, one of the reasons I talk about this all the time is it's got to be repeated over and over and over again. I am going to be the keynote speaker at the CMO at the Millennial Alliance Transformational CMO event in August, where there are going to be 85 C-level people from all the top organizations in the country, top retailers, top companies, and they were talking to me, and I'm like, well, listen, understand that if you're going to have a topic that you want me to speak about, then I'm probably not your guy, because I am going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about return on relationship, because this is what they all have to hear. They have to hear it because it's something they need to pass along to the people who look up to them. They have to hear it because enough of it is not done within their companies. So I never feel it's enough. But again, I'm going to weave this back to your earlier point. We're all busy. It's difficult. And that's why it's okay to take shortcuts. It's okay to have shortcuts in your phone where you put in 2 letters and it gives a standard answer that's really nice. And don't get me wrong, personalize it. Make sure you make it something a little personal, especially if you know that person. But there's nothing wrong, by the way, with saying, I'm busy. I can't do this right now. I appreciate that so much when I reach out to somebody. And I don't care what it's for. And I'll tell you, 90% of my outreach these days is to help a friend's kid, or to help a buddy who's in his 50s who's been out of work for a year and is trying to figure out what's a way to get back in. Can you do me a favor? Just talk to this person. Give them some guidance. I'm not even asking for something for me, but I still appreciate when you get back and go, hey, man, I'd really love to help out. And I had a similar situation with a CMO recently that I was trying to introduce him to a company that I do work with and I advise. And he never answered my emails. And I finally see him in person at an event. And of course he knew. He was kind of hoping I'd be like a lot of people, just ignore it, don't say anything. But I just walk right up and I go, dude, what's going on? And he's like, look, you have no idea. And that my company would never do business with these guys. I'm like, how hard is it to write back and say that?
Yeah.
I respect that. hey, Ted, this is not right for us. I can't do it. I'm really busy. I appreciate everything you've done for me in the past, but this isn't a good time.
Yeah.
It's be upfront with people, be authentic with people. Look, my blog, tedrubin.com, is called Straight Talk. And it's called Straight Talk for a reason. Now, that doesn't mean be a jerk. That doesn't mean straight talk, be nasty, be professional, but be straight with people. One of the reasons I get the work I get and probably don't get some of the work I don't get is because I tell it like it is. If you ask me for my opinion, and I'm talking about business and I will give you my opinion. Look, I'm a big believer. If a friend comes up to you, says, I just bought this car, what do you think of it? And you think it sucks, I would never say that. I won't be straight then. I will tell them, oh man, what a great car, what a great decision. But if they come to me before they buy that car and say, I'm thinking of buying this, what do you think? Then I'm going to give them my straight out opinion. And I just think that people need to do that more. And I'm telling you, I urge your audience to understand you don't have to close on every call. Actually, it'll do you better. You'll build a reputation that you're not the guy that reaches out on LinkedIn, makes like you're interested in that person replies, and the first thing back is, I have this great product to sell you. Or let's jump on a call because I do coaching and I think I can help you get more clients. Or worse yet, you're using some kind of chatbot or AI technology and you're telling me that you really want to talk to me because you're looking to connect with people who are high level in the HR community, and I've never been in HR in my life. There's just probably some keyword on my LinkedIn that got them to get me added to a list.
One of the most difficult juxtapositions is our consultants, they want new clients, right? And part of the way you get new clients is by building relationships, right? But at the end of the day, you say, tell it like it is. If I'm really telling it like it is, I want your business. But I also can't go in there and just say, hi, I'm Bradley, I want your business, because that's not going to get me anywhere. So the truth is I want your business, but the reality is I need to build a relationship in order to potentially get there if there's a problem that you. So how as a consultant, like what do you tell the audience? What do you tell that consultant that says, damn it, I just need new clients. I need a new client right now. I don't make enough to pay my bills, but I know I can't just go there and directly sell. Like, what do I do?
Well, first, it depends on the industry, but first of all, I want to address that question you just said, that I need this money to pay my bills. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with saying that as well. You're being frank. You're being upfront. Look, I would never try to sell you. I just met you at this Chamber of Commerce meeting, or I just met you at the park with my kids. And I just want to let you know, Bradley, I would never try to sell you right away, but I just lost my biggest client and I need some business. And what I will promise you is I will over deliver like you've never seen. There's nothing wrong with that. Now that's really down and dirty for a particular instance. Now here's another on the other end of the spectrum, because it depends on the business. I think it's really important to create content and share it. Again, I'm talking to a very general audience here, so there are people that this won't apply to. But I will tell you right now that I've seen some consultants I know helping law firms with this kind of thing, like putting out more content. Helping people with the information they need is a great way to get their attention. Sharing their content is a great way to get their attention. If I want to get the attention of a CMO or a top marketer at a firm, I will start sharing their content. I will start commenting on their posts. And I will try to do it in a thoughtful manner that adds value to what they're doing, because I promise you, it's not going to work on the first one unless you're, some big name person. They go, oh my God, Bradley Jacobs commented on my post. I'm going to reply to him. But they're going to want to know who you are. They're going to research you. So the other end of that coin is make sure you have something valuable for them to see when they research you. Make sure your LinkedIn is up to date. Make sure it's not just following the gurus that tell you to have keywords in there and other things. Yes, if you're looking for a regular job and all these recruiters, look for certain things. But if you're selling yourself in your own business, make sure there's things in there, whether it's a video at the top of your thing or an ability to book an appointment or just explaining what you've done for companies and what you can do. Okay, if you have a website, if you have a blog, if you have a website, make sure it's up to date. I can't tell you how many of these things I go to, and they're so freaking old because people will look you up. Go to Google and Google yourself. This is really important. See what comes up when you Google yourself. And by the way, it is incredibly easy to game that. It's just about creating content. I mean, you go to Google right now and Google Ted Rubin, you're going to get 15 pages of stuff that I've either written about me or stuff that I've written or quotes that I've done. And that doesn't happen in a day. That's taken years of work to create. But I will tell you that when I first started, I moved the needle in a matter of weeks because all of a sudden there was stuff being produced by me, and that gets championed by the search engines. And I will tell you that from what I've seen, and I am the furthest thing from not even an AI expert, even an AI user, but AI is going to focus on that probably even more intensely. As people get more critical of the crap that AI is throwing at people now, which is just a glorified Google search, and you think it's original content. Let's talk about a little bit more about how do you get people's attention. So you create your own content, number one. It sounds hard, and I want to make sure I assure you of something. You're going to look me up, Google me, or just go to tedrubin.com or returnrelationship.com. You can see a ton of content. You can go, oh my God, this is easy for them. It was so hard for me when I started. I'm a talker, hard to tell, right? And I express myself best when I speak, and I was never a long form writer. And all of a sudden, in 2007, 2008, I discovered Twitter. And I'm like, oh my God, I can write 140 characters and it's a post. This is amazing. And then I found out that I had a talent for writing short form content, for getting a thought across in very few characters. And then I got tapped on the shoulder by a mentor who says, okay, now you got to start a blog. And I'm like, what? He's like, you got to take this further. You got to do a little bit more. It's not enough. And, this is before LinkedIn had the ability to write in the format that you can. And I was like, how do I don't even think that way. But it's really not that hard. Number one is you can become known just for sharing good content from other people. If you're a learner, which I am, and you're always seeking out new information, you can share that information, and people will say, wow, I got to go back to Ted's page because he's always got great advice or great content from other people. I also learned that the way I write best, which I've advised to so many people and they've thanked me for it, is that I tend to write most on things I'm passionate about. I can hate it or I can love it. And what I do is I look at other people's content, which we all do, and I say, oh my God, he's so on point. And then all of a sudden the words just start flowing, right? You jump on his thing. First of all, you're supporting him. You're liking it. You're giving him a comment. I take that comment, I turn it into a repost, and then I take that comment and I file it in my email, and I use that to write a blog post because I just wrote half of it. I wrote a paragraph because I was fired up about something, and now I got something that I can write more about. So you can also take anything you write as a long form and turn it into short posts so that you can keep putting this stuff out there, and a lot of it just becomes habit. Like I just do it throughout the day. So to me, it's the best advertising in the world. I'm putting my name out there and my name is popping up in front of them. Stuff that I'm writing about and my opinions are there. And now I have confidence in those opinions. So that's a good thing. If you don't, it's a little bit harder. But the other thing is, like I said, is start commenting on other people's posts. Go to the companies that you're interested in. Share their content. Talk about what they're doing. Support them. Throw in something that they might be talking about where they're looking to get some help with something. It doesn't have to be something you can help them with. But when this becomes something that you do every day, you don't look at it as, oh my God, it's going to take me so long to get from here to there, because you're constantly filling the funnel with this kind of things that every few days, another Bradley Jacobs is popping up as ready to approach with something that might be helpful to him.
Yeah, no, this is great stuff, Ted. We got to wrap it up in a minute, but I just want to leave our audience with, what is one of your favorite tools or resources that just maybe is a game changer in your professional life that you would recommend to our audience that you love?
Truth be told, the game changer is still the same game changer it was. It's Gmail. It's my email, because it makes it very easy for me to stay on top of things. It's where I save everything. It's where I ask everybody to reach out to me, because once every couple of days I go back through my emails. I look at what I haven't followed up on. When I have a thought, I throw it in there. I used to throw it into my calendar, but then it gets lost because it was in my calendar from 3 days ago. Now I keep it on my desktop, and I always gradually, and then I also will do little tweaks that, like, I'll leave something like unopened, unread, because that's something I've got to get back to. I have files for things. And when I need a blog post, I go to my blog post file and I've got 50 ideas there. Some of them, literally, I just wrote a blog post the other day on something that I put in there 4 years ago, because it was timely. Some things are evergreen, some things change. So just for me, we all have to have our own little shortcuts. And also the same, I'm going to add a couple others. Like I said to you earlier, I make shortcuts for things. I want to comment on a lot of people's things. So when I write something that I really like, I go, wow, like relationships are like muscle tissue, or a network gives you reach, your community gives you power, or, a brand is what a business does. I have dozens of these. I save them, first of all. So in Goodreads, where you can put quotes, I have all the quotes I've written. And anytime I want more, I go to old things I've written and I find one-liners that work as comments on people's posts, as things to share with people. I get a lot of outreach from people. They want quotes for their blog posts or quotes for their things. I use my blog as a repository of content. So if you were to reach out to me and tell me you wanted me to write something on trust, I just go to the trust posts I've written and I either say to you, is it okay if I give you one I've already written, or I write a new one taking some of the information. Yeah. To me, that's always been the game changer.
Yeah. Ted, thank you so much for your time. How can our audience find you? What is the best way?
Well, first of all, you can Google Ted Rubin. You can find me. My LinkedIn has my phone number and my email address, the ones I use currently. Same thing for Facebook and everywhere else. I'll give it to you right here. It's tedrubin@gmail.com. It's 516-270-5511. I will answer the phone. I will tell you, if you have another minute to hear a story, that, normally I give out my phone on stage. And inevitably, somebody calls me while I'm up on stage. So that's always fun.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then afterwards, I'll get a few calls. Well, I was on a stage. There was 7,000 women in the audience, and it was a direct sales event. And I guess I kind of hit it off with them. And I jumped down into the audience, and I took people's hands, and I skipped through the stage. And I'd given out my phone number. And within hours of the event, I got 500 voicemails. 500 voicemails. So I'm determined, because of course I tell everybody, I answer everybody. Right. So fortunately I had a little time off planned after that up in the mountains with family. And every day I would take out a couple of hours and I would just go through. And of course I got a lot of voicemails. But at the end, I'm at like number 400 something. And the woman says to me, yeah, great return on relationship. It took you 4 days to get back to me. And I said to her, Laurie, I got 500 voicemails. Yeah. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. What number am I? I said, 452. She goes, I can't believe you called me.
Yeah.
So, that's what I'd like to leave them with. And again, one last thing I'd like to say, you've heard a lot of my things. I just threw out one quickly. And I think this one's really important. We all need other people. And we all hear this word about how important networking is, especially in sales. Get to know people, add to your database. Well, I like to say that a network gives you reach, but a community gives you power. Networks connect, communities care. Build communities, not only outside your business, but build employee community within your company.
Love it. Wow. Thank you so much, Ted. It's been great having you on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.